What's up, Flatirons? Come on, stand up on your feet. Put your hands together with us, whether you're in the room or watching online. Let's join together and worship. Is in his blood. Jesus, light of heaven, friend forever, his kingdom come. So don't let your heart be troubled. Hold your head up high, don't fear no evil. Fix your eyes on this one truth. God is madly in love with you. So take courage, hold on, be strong. Remember where our help comes from. Oh, 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 oh. You're the God of covenant and faithful promises. Time and time again, you have proven you do just what you said. Though the storms may come and the winds may blow, I'll remain steadfast and let my heart speak. When you lead up, it will come to pass. Great is your faithfulness to me. Great is your faithfulness to me. From the rising sun to the setting, same I will praise your name. How great is your faithfulness to me. Great is your faithfulness. Great is your love for me, God. God from age to age. God from age to age. Though the earth may pass away, your word remains the same. Your history can prove there's nothing you can't do. You're faithful and true. Though the storms may come and the winds may blow, I'll remain steadfast and let my heart learn. When you speak a word, it will come to pass. Great is your faithfulness to me. Great is your faithfulness. faithfulness to me. We've seen what you can do, oh God of wonders. Your power has no end. The things you've done before, in greater measure, we know you will do again. 'Cause there's no prison wall you can't break through, no mountain you can't move. All things are possible. There's no broken body you can't raise, no snow that you can't save. All things are possible. The darkest night, you can light it up. You can light it up. God of revival, let hope arise. Death is overcome, and you've already won. God of revival. You rose in victory, and now you're seated forever on the throne. So why should my heart fear what you've defeated? I will trust in you alone. 'Cause there's no prison wall you can't break through, no mountain you can't move. All things are possible. Come on. And there's no broken body you can't raise, no snow that you can't save. All things are possible. The darkest night, you can light it up. You can light it up. God of revival, let hope arise. Death is overcome, and you've already won. God of revival, you're the God of revival. We need a revival this morning, amen? Let's sing this out over our city, over our lives. Come awaken. Come awaken your people. Come awaken this city. Oh God of revival, pour it out, pour it out. Every stronghold will crumble. I hear the chains hit the ground. Oh God of revival, pour it out, pour it out. Come awaken your people. Come awaken this city. Oh God of revival, pour it out, pour it out. Every stronghold will crumble. I hear the chains hit the ground. Oh God of revival, pour it out, pour it out. The darkest night, you
sound good today. Hey, right now what I want you to do is just turn, say hi to someone, wave, salute, wink. It's Valentine's Day. If you're feeling wild, then go ahead and have a seat. We'll get started. So hi, welcome. Hey, I'm Ben. I'm the teaching pastor here. I'm glad you braved the snow like true Coloradans. Well done. You're the real people. I'm glad you're here today. I'm glad because today's a special day. We got a lot going on today. All right, first thing we got going on is we've got groups launch. All right, we're launching our small groups in case you've missed that announcement. That's important to us around here. The way we say it is we learn in rows. So we learn in environments like this one, but then we grow in circles of trusted people and circles of friends. If you're the kind of person that's like, yeah, I could really use a circle of trusted people, don't sleep on that. After service, head out into our lobby or at all of our campuses and go sign up for a small group. Jump online and sign up for a small group. That's the first thing we got going on. Second thing is that it's February 14th. All right, so for the women in the room, I would like to say Happy Valentine's Day. All right, for the men in the room, I would like to say this is your final reminder that it's Valentine's Day. Got to get your stuff together. The biggest reason why today is special, though, is because after years and years and years of unloading trailers at like 4:30 in the morning and doing church out of a school, after years of that, our Aurora campus finally has a permanent home, and they have opened their doors for the first time this weekend, which is awesome. All right, this series is all about how, like, when we bump into Jesus and we start following him, he has the ability to rewrite our lives. Just like Robin talked about, he has the power to change our stories. But to get us in the right frame of mind for today, I want to ask you a question. All right, for some of us, it might feel like an invasive question. I'm going to ask it anyway. The question is this: your life is telling a story, but is it a compelling story? Your life is telling a story. You can't change that. The question is your life a compelling story? Compelling as in meaningful and purposeful and interesting, a story worth telling, a story worth sharing, a story worth living. Here's what I mean by that. Like, imagine your funeral one day. All right, what are people going to say about you at your funeral? What are they going to say about the way that you spent your life? And what are they going to say about your character as they reminisce on your story? Is it going to be a compelling story? Or is it going to be one of those funerals that I think all of us have attended at least one of these? Is it going to be one of those funerals where people don't really have anything to say? You know, so people are just like, yeah, he could be kind of a pain in the butt, but that's just who he was. Is it going to be one of those stories? Your life is telling a story, but is it a compelling story? When I ask that question, my guess is that for most of us listening to this, we're going, yeah, I don't know. You know, maybe not. See, I think for most of us, if we're being really honest with ourselves, we're not sure if our lives, our stories are compelling. I mean, for some of us, even thinking about it is giving us a pit in our stomachs. Why? Well, because we're going, I don't know. Like, my life is pretty mundane and routine and repetitive. Like, it feels pretty meaningless or uneventful in the grand scheme of things. Our stories feel like chapter 1, wake up, go to work, come home, eat dinner, watch TV, go to bed. Chapter 2, wake up, go to work, come home, eat dinner, watch TV, go to bed. Just chapters 1 through 88, that's all it is. And then it's just the end. You know, routine, repetitive, mundane. We feel like we're not making an impact on the world. We feel like our stories are boring and unimportant. But what's up with that? Why do we feel that way? Because the truth is that Jesus created you, and Jesus does not create mundane stories and meaningless people. In fact, Jesus told us this. He said, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. Jesus says he came to give us a full life, not a barely sufficient, barely enough, just going through the routine, just earning a paycheck kind of life, but instead an overflowing, meaningful, purposeful kind of life. He came to give us stories that are compelling, but we don't feel like that half the time. And so over the course of this series, I want to tackle that. We're going to tackle this idea of our lives being stories. Your life is telling a story, but is it a compelling story? And every single week, we're going to look at an aspect from Jesus's life that made for a great story, like it made for a great life. And then we're going to figure out how to implement that aspect into our own lives so that we can have meaningful, compelling stories, so that we can have life and life to the full. And to get started today, I want to start where every good story starts, all right? Because every good story starts with an author or a filmmaker or whatever sitting down at a computer, or I like to picture like sitting down at an old cabin with an old typewriter and an old pipe and a glass of bourbon. Every story starts with an author sitting down, and they have at the very least one thing. At the very least, they have compelling vision. They have a picture in their minds of their story. They have a picture of why their story is important, why their story is worth telling. The picture is not a boring story. The picture is an exciting and compelling story. Yeah, think of this. Think of some of the longest lasting stories that we have in our culture, some of the stories that have stood the test of time. Take Star Wars, for example. Right, the first one came out in 1977. They're still churning out Star Wars movies and books and games and toys. It's a gold mine. And it's a gold mine because back in the 70s, George Lucas had a compelling vision. And so he started writing. What did he write about? Well, he wrote about ordinary people like Luke Skywalker doing extraordinary things with extraordinary characters like Chewbacca and C-3PO and the little green guy who doesn't know proper grammar. And he wrote about ordinary people doing extraordinary things in order for good to triumph over evil in space. That's a compelling vision. If Lucas sat down and did not have a compelling vision, if he sat down to write a story about people living in space and they all pretty much get along and it's pretty much utopia, so they just kind of farm and hang out and have a good time, if that was Lucas's vision, it would not be called Star Wars. It would be called Star Farmers, and it would have sucked. Think about Lord of the Rings, right? Tolkien had a compelling vision, so he started writing. And again, he wrote about ordinary people, like the small guy with hairy feet, doing extraordinary things with extraordinary characters, like the big baby with the comb over who's always talking about his precious or whatever, all right? And he wrote about ordinary people doing extraordinary things in order for good to triumph over evil, except not in space this time. This time it's in New Zealand or wherever. Can you tell that I have not read or watched Lord of the Rings once in my life? Every homeschool Christian just shed a tear in my direction right now. I can make that joke. I was homeschooled for 3 years. It was a dark 3 years. You get it though. Every good story begins with compelling vision, right? An author sits down. They may not know exactly how chapters 1 through 50 are going to play out or scenes 1 through 50, but they do have a picture in their minds of why their story is important and why their story is worth telling. They have compelling vision. Our God has compelling vision. He had a compelling vision for humanity, for us, and for himself, and for his relationship with us. And he's had this compelling vision since day one. And God's compelling vision could be summed up like this. Here's God's compelling vision. I will do whatever it takes to love and bless and be in relationship with the people that I've created. And at the climax of this story that I'm writing, I'm going to prove it to the world through Jesus. That's a compelling vision. And so all of the Old Testament, book after book after book, is a narrative of God working his way to the climax of this story that he's writing. And then Jesus, God in the flesh, he shows up at the beginning of the New Testament. We quickly discover that Jesus also has a compelling vision for his life. And Jesus' compelling vision could be summed up as this: I will bring people back into relationship with their Father, God, even if it kills me. And then it does kill him. And then 3 days later, he's resurrected to defeat death once and for all. That is a compelling vision. It makes for a great life. It makes for a great story. That's the reason that 2,000 years later, we're still telling this story to each other. And people like myself have gone, yeah, I believe it. And we put in our entire faith into it. Jesus has a compelling vision. He has a compelling vision not only for humanity at large, like all of creation, but he also has a compelling vision for your life in particular. He's got a compelling vision that's specific to you, with your color of skin, at your age, with your upbringing, with your strengths, and with your weaknesses. And so what I want to do right now is I want to zoom in on a moment from Jesus' life where we see that that's the case. If you want to follow along, we're going to be in John chapter 4. We're picking it up in verse 7. Before we do that, let me kind of set the scene for us. All right, here's the scene. Jesus at this point has started his ministry, right? So he's a traveling preacher. So he's traveling. He's on his way to a place called Galilee. To get there, he's got to pass through a place called Samaria. Samaria is important. I'll explain why in a minute. But so Jesus and his disciples, his buddies, they've been walking all day long. By the time they get into Samaria, it's noon. All right, it's the heat of the day. It's just super duper hot, and it's lunchtime. And so Jesus sends his disciples into town to buy lunch while he chills at this well. It's at a very important well in Samaria, built by an important guy named Jacob. And Jesus plops down on this well. His dogs are barking, and he's going to take a load off. And that's where we pick up. So Jesus is sitting at this well with the sun bearing down on him. And then this happens. Verse 7. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" But then the Samaritan woman said back to him, she goes, "You're a Jew. You're a Jew, and I'm a Samaritan woman. How are you going to ask me for a drink?" For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. Okay, time out. So at first glance, this looks like a very reasonable and innocent request from Jesus. All he says is like, "Hey, could I get a glass of water?" That's all he says. But when we understand the context behind everything, we realize Jesus is breaking all kinds of rules right now. First of all, without getting into all the history behind everything, the first thing we need to know is that Samaritans were hated by the Jewish people and vice versa. Right? These two people groups had been fighting with each other for centuries. In this culture, Jesus, a Jew, should not be hanging out in Samaria. He should definitely not be talking to a Samaritan. Then on top of that, in this culture, women were unfortunately treated as second-class citizens. Now, Jesus spent a lot of time and energy elevating the status of women and restoring dignity and treating them equal to men. But still, in the typical mind in this culture, Jesus should not be chit-chatting with a strange woman. So Jesus is breaking the social rule of Jews don't talk to Samaritans, and he's breaking the social rule of men don't speak to strange women that they don't know. It's a twofer, it's a double whammy. And then on top of all of that, he's not only talking to a strange Samaritan woman, but he's also talking to a woman who is obviously broken and damaged. And I say that because she's getting water at noon, during the heat of the day when it's hottest outside. Every other woman draws water before the sun comes up, when it's still cool outside. And so obviously she's drawing water at noon because she's trying to avoid the other women. She has something to hide. She has something she's ashamed of. So that's what's going on. All right, Jesus talks to this woman at the well. She's very, very shocked that he's speaking to her, but Jesus continues the conversation anyway. Look at this. Jesus answered her. He goes, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asked you for a drink, you would have asked him. You would have asked me, and I would have given you living water." Jesus basically goes, if you only knew the significance of this moment right now, you'd be asking me for water, and I'd give you something mysterious called living water. Now the woman is confused. Like, what's living water? Super confused. And so here's her reply, and I love her reply. She says this, "Sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is very deep. So where are you going to get this living water?" And she goes, "Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us this well? He built this well, and he drank from it himself, as also did his sons and his flocks and his herds." I love that because what just happened is the woman gets saucy. All right, she gets super sarcastic. Women, you have a natural gift of being scathingly sarcastic when strange men ask to get a drink with you. It's like a gift I'm thankful that you have. And this woman has the gift too. And so what she just said is basically she goes, oh, okay, you're gonna give me some special mysterious living water. Okay, that's gonna be tough because you didn't bring a bucket and I'm not gonna get it for you, is what she said. And then she goes, and besides, do you think you're better than Jacob who dug this well? Is this normal, unliving water not good enough for someone like you? Ladies, this is the equivalent of you telling the guy at the bar to take a hike. I love it. Like she just sarcastically told Jesus, the Son of God, to buzz off. It's awesome. Her and I could be friends. But Jesus stays calm. Look at this. Jesus answered, he goes, listen, everyone who drinks this water from Jacob's well is going to be thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water I give him will never thirst. He says, indeed, in fact, the water I give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life. That's all confusing language. But you and I, we have the benefit of being able to read all of Jesus' story. And so we're able to become aware of the fact that he talks about living water all of the time. And he uses it as a metaphor. It's a metaphor for this abundant life. This life and life to the full that we talked about at the beginning of this thing. And so what Jesus is telling her is he's going, listen, I can give you purpose. Like I can give you compelling vision. I can give you a compelling story. This woman, of course, can't read Jesus' story. She's living in the moment, so she doesn't understand the metaphor. She just gets super confused, and so she ramps up the sarcasm. And the woman says back to him, she goes, sir, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty again and have to keep coming here to draw water. She goes, yeah, please give me this magic water of yours. It sounds nice to never be thirsty again. But what happens is in her sarcasm, she gives Jesus an in to her personal life. Because she goes, yeah, give me your magic water. It'd be nice to never be thirsty. But then at the end, she goes, God knows your magic water would get me out of having to come to the well at noon. And Jesus leans into it. He goes, yeah, let's talk about that. And so here's what happens next. He told her, he goes, go, call your husband and come back. And she goes, I don't have a husband. And then Jesus said to her, he goes, you're right when you say that you have no husband. And the fact is you've had 5 husbands, and the man that you're with right now isn't even your husband. Like what you've just said for the first time is quite true. And that sounds harsh at first. It's like, geez, Jesus. Like, leave this poor woman alone, give her a break. But what he's actually doing is loving. What he's doing is exposing this woman's lack of vision in her life. He just calls it out. He just calls out that this woman has spent a lifetime jumping from man to man to man. She's got 5 ex-husbands. It looks like she's working on a 6th. In this society, divorced women were viewed and treated as damaged goods. And so she goes to the well at noon, not because she wants to. She goes to the well at noon because she can't take the shame anymore. She goes to the well at noon because she's tired of being whispered about. She's tired of being stared at. She's tired of being judged by all the other perfect women with their perfect marriages who are constantly posting about it on their perfect Instagram feeds. She's sick of it. And Jesus just called it out. He lovingly exposed that this woman has bought into a lie. She has bought into a crappy vision for her life. Because the vision for her story right now is just, I'm the kind of woman who has to go to the well at noon. People don't want to be around me, and I don't want to be around people because I'm incapable of relationships. This woman's vision for her story can be boiled down to simply, I'm the kind of person who's just always going to be thirsty. Like I'm going to be chronically, perpetually thirsty for more out of my life, and I'm never going to get it. And Jesus just called it out. He gently made this woman aware of the fact that she has settled for a life that is anything but compelling. And what happens is it actually disarms the woman. She's not even mad. It disarms her. She actually lays off the sarcasm and she starts to lean in. And over the next few verses, I'll just kind of summarize them for us. She looks at Jesus and she goes, okay, you're obviously a prophet. Like there's no other way you could know that about my life. You hit the nail on the head when it comes to my life. I'm actually so amazed by you that I would love to worship the God that you have, but I can't because I'm a Samaritan. And then Jesus looks back at her and he goes, hey, listen, the time is actually here and now where it doesn't matter anymore that you're a Samaritan. You can worship and follow my God, and my God can love and care for you. And then at this point, the woman's like really leaning in. Right? This isn't just some creeper by the well. She's met a lot of men like that in her day. This guy's different. This guy is special. And she wants a glass of whatever he's drinking, this living water stuff. And so she says something interesting. Look at this. The woman said, I know what you're talking about. I know that the Messiah called Christ is coming, and when he comes, he'll explain everything to us. What she just said is, yeah, I've heard about this before. I heard that one day I'll be able to follow your God, even though I'm a Samaritan, but I've also heard that I won't be able to do that until this Jewish Messiah guy shows up. And when she says that, something awesome happens. Because she brings up the Messiah, and then Jesus declared, I who speak to you am he. And I love that. If we blow past this, we'll miss how awesome that one moment is. See, because this woman, who viewed herself as damaged and broken goods, this Samaritan woman who crawls to the well at noon because she's a social pariah, this woman who has settled for a mundane, shame-filled, boring vision for her life, this woman is the very first person that Jesus chose to say out loud to, I am the Messiah that everybody's been waiting for. She's the first one, even before his disciples. Common sense says he should have picked basically anybody else. He shouldn't have picked someone who had so much baggage. He should have definitely picked a Jewish person. He should have picked a Jewish man, and he should have picked someone of like influence and importance, like a big high priest or something like that. But he didn't pick that. Instead, he chose this Samaritan woman. She is the first person in history to ever realize that Jesus is the living, breathing, walking, talking climax of God's vision for the world. And it's just awesome. Like it fits Jesus' character to a T. He's got this way of doing whatever it takes to elevate the down and out and going out of his way to love the people who think they're unlovable. Like Jesus just announced the most important breaking news headline in all of human history, and he announced it to this woman at the well. And I can't help but think that in doing that, what he communicated to the woman is like, listen, I know in your mind you view yourself as the village hooker. I know. I know you think that that's all you're ever going to be, but to me, you're valuable and you're important enough to me, all right? Don't worry about the people you're avoiding. You're important enough to me for me to share this big news with you. How does this story end? Well, the woman is floored, right? Later in the chapter, we learn that she runs back into town. She ran toward the people in her village, the people she's been spending a lifetime running away from. She runs toward them and she goes, hey, listen, you've got to come and see. You've got to come and see this man at the well. I'm pretty sure he's the Messiah. And at the end of this story, we learn that a ton of Samaritans become followers of Jesus because of, not in spite of, but because of this woman. This woman at the well runs into town and she starts telling a story about the man at the well. And she becomes the first missionary in Christian history. All because Jesus gave this woman a new, fresh, better, compelling vision for her life. Her vision changed. It changed from, I exist, to hide in shame and sleep with whoever will take me in. It changed from that to I exist to introduce people to the man at the well. And once her vision changed, her story changed with it. And eventually, her entire hometown changed. Now, what does this story have to do with us living in 21st century America? All right, well, remember our series. We're looking at aspects of Jesus' life that make for a great story, make for a great life. We're trying to figure out how to implement those aspects into our own life. And so here's the question. All right, if Jesus had a compelling vision for his own life, and if Jesus went out of his way to offer other people, like the woman at the well, compelling vision for their lives, if Jesus and the people he spent time with had compelling vision for their lives, why don't we? And the truth is, if we want to have meaningful, important, valuable, compelling lives and stories, we should be able to finish the following sentence. I exist to what? For most of us, we can't immediately answer that question. We're not sure. All right, we're not sure what we were uniquely created and equipped and qualified by God to offer the world. We don't have the vision. We don't have the focus. And so naturally, we end up meandering day after day and year after year, just earning a paycheck or just going to school, just jumping in and out of relationships. We don't have a focused goal. We don't have a compelling vision. And at the same time, we wonder why our lives feel routine and mundane and aimless. There's this quote from an author that kind of kickstarted this series for us, all right? His name is Donald Miller. He's an awesome author. I'd recommend any book that he wrote. But this quote I'm going to read you, it's a total kick in the pants, all right? But I think it's a kick in the pants we need. I needed it, at least. It's kind of long. I'm going to put it on the screen so you can read along. But Miller says this. He goes, if you watched a movie about a guy who wanted a Volvo and worked for years to get it, you wouldn't cry at the end when he drove off the lot testing the windshield wipers. Right? You wouldn't tell your friends you saw a beautiful movie, or you wouldn't go home and put on a record to think about the story you'd seen. The truth is, you wouldn't remember that movie a week later, except you'd feel robbed and want your money back. Nobody cries at the end of a movie about a guy who wants a Volvo. But then here's the kick in the pants. He goes, but we spend years actually living those stories, and we expect our lives to be meaningful. The truth is, if what we choose to do with our lives won't make a story meaningful, it won't make a life meaningful either. Woof. It's so true though, isn't it? I mean, I think this is one of the things that COVID exposed in our lives. It exposed this massive lack of vision in our individual lives, just like Jesus exposed this lack of vision to the woman back at the well. Here's what I mean by that. Think about this. COVID exposed the fact that we've settled for Volvos, so to speak. I was like, maybe we've never been able to articulate why my individual life is important. But before COVID, I could ignore that lack of vision because I could distract myself, right? I went to concerts and I went to Broncos games and restaurants and movies, you name it. The lack of purpose and vision was kind of covered up by distraction. But then suddenly all those things are removed and you could really just go to work or go home. Some of us couldn't even go to work. And what happened was we were suddenly forced face to face with this lack of vision in our lives. And whether it was conscious or not, we were left asking ourselves, like, surely I exist to do more than just work on the weekdays so that I can go to restaurants on the weekends. Like, I exist for more than that, right? But a lot of us weren't sure because we haven't yet thought about or we haven't been able to articulate a compelling vision for our lives. I exist to what? What do I exist for? If we have no answer to that question, or if we have a boring answer to that question, we can expect to live aimless, boring lives. And I know there's not a single person listening to this right now that wants that kind of life. And so what do? Well, I think we take a page from Jesus's playbook. I promise you, Jesus does not create boring stories, and he does not create meaningless, purposeless, aimless people. And so I think it's worth it to learn a lesson from the woman at the well. I think we should craft compelling vision for our lives. Specifically, I want to throw out a way to do that. It's something I've done in my life, right? The challenge is this for us this week. Write a vision statement for your life. I exist to what? Finish the sentence. Actually do it, like write it down. Put some serious intentional time and thought into it. Jesus doesn't create purposeless people, and so why did he create you? You exist to what? And the goal is to make it meaningful, of course. The goal is also to make it short and sweet and easy to memorize so that you can remind yourself of it constantly, so that you can bring focus and intentionality into the story that you're writing with your life. I am not exaggerating when I say that this is one of the most practically helpful things I've ever done. I wrote a vision statement for my life. I was encouraged to do that by a mentor of mine years and years ago. What's interesting is that I wrote this even before I thought I would be a pastor or thought I would be a teacher. That wasn't on my radar. I do think my vision statement helped me realize that's what I wanted to do. I'll share mine with you so that we have an example of what I'm talking about. But my personal vision statement is this: I exist to creatively communicate a constant God to a constantly changing culture. That's my mission statement, my vision statement. And that little statement right there for the last 7 to 8 years has helped bring focus to the story that I want to write with my life. I revisit it every single year to see if I want to change anything. So far, I haven't wanted to change anything because it's helpful and it's short and it's sweet and I've got it memorized. It's something I can do at work, of course. It's also something I can do with my friends and with Allie and with my kids. Like, it's something that plays in my mind when I think about how to treat the waiter at a restaurant. My vision statement has given my story purpose and importance and meaning. It's helped me focus on the right things and eliminate the wrong things. It's helped in so many ways. It's helped me through seasons of deep depression. It's a reason to wake up in the morning. Why did I wake up this morning? Oh yeah, because I have to creatively communicate a constant God to a constantly changing culture. It's helped bring purpose and clarity to the mundane, boring parts of my life. It's like tomorrow I got to fill out a bunch of credit card reports. I hate anything and everything to do with math, but that's okay. Why? Because sometimes you just got to do boring stuff to keep your job, and I want to keep my job because at Flatirons, I can creatively communicate a constant God to a constantly changing culture. Sometimes my vision statement pops into my head and it reminds me not to let these moments go by. An example of that is last summer, I'm fishing with my son, Micah. He's 5. We're fishing, and he catches a fish. He reels it in, and we're holding it. And as we're holding it, suddenly it's like, boom, you exist to creatively communicate. My vision statement pops into my mind. And so instead of just throwing the fish back, we take a moment. And I look at Micah, and I'm like, Micah, isn't God awesome? And he's like, what do you mean? And why are you crazy? And I was like, he's just awesome. He just made fish to be cool. There's no reason to make fish other than to be awesome. And he had already made rivers and streams and oceans and ponds and lakes. And then after that, he was like, I'm going to make an animal that calls water home. And so he just made fish, and he invented gills. And I'm telling Micah, I'm like, what's crazy is that forever ago when God made fish, he knew that one day you and I would catch this fish and we would sit around and talk about how cool he is. And I think that makes him happy. And he was like, yeah, that's awesome. And we just shared a moment. We had a good moment together. I think I would have let that moment pass me by if I didn't have this vision statement absolutely drilled into my brain. Side note, we might have had too long of a moment. We threw that fish back. He didn't really swim away as much as just sink to the bottom of the lake. You got to crack a few eggs to make an omelet, though. Got to kill a few fish to teach your kids about God, right? You get it. I'm telling you, it's worth it. It's worth it to take me up on this challenge. In fact, it's probably going to be hard to apply anything else that we learn in this series if you don't first take me up on this challenge. Write a vision statement for your life. I exist to what? No one can do this for you. You got to write this bad boy yourself, all right? But it has the potential to reshape and rewrite your story. For example, for the moms in the room, you don't exist to make sandwiches. Right? You don't. You don't exist to be a toddler chauffeur. You don't exist to just keep these kids alive for 18 years. Don't get me wrong. Part of your job is making sandwiches and carpooling and occasionally doing the Heimlich, all right? But for the sake of your kids and for the sake of your sanity, create a compelling vision for your life. Instead, tell yourself, I exist to carefully shape hearts and souls. I exist to love unconditionally. I exist to champion other people. I don't know what your vision statement might be. You got to write it yourself. But don't those sound more compelling than just, I exist to be a short order cook for the insane people living in my home? Think bigger than sandwiches. And maybe some of us are going I don't know, dude, I own a small business, so I exist to make money? No, think bigger. Your business provides goods and services to people who need it. Your business provides paychecks for the people working for you. Think bigger than success or money. I exist to provide for the people entrusted to me. Maybe some of us are going like, this is a moot point for me, doesn't make sense. Like I retired a few years ago. I'm in cruise control. I guess I exist to ride out my twilight years. No, again, for the sake of your sanity, create a compelling vision for your retirement. Like people my age, I'm in my 30s. I know I look like 19, I'm 35. I'm a Benjamin Button thing, don't worry about it. I'm in my 30s, people in their 40s, people in their 20s, like please speak up, we need you. I would like to learn from your mistakes. I would like to learn from what you did well. I would like to learn from your hard-earned wisdom, like we're flying blind. I exist to coach and encourage the younger generation. Or maybe you got grandkids living around you. I exist to gift my newfound time to my family. Write a vision statement for your life. Later this week, once you've got your vision statement, you've done the work, you've got it figured out, you've got it written down, hop on Flatiron social media and share it with us. All you got to do is hashtag storyline vision. I just share it with us so that we can be learning from each other. It also helps for the people in the room who are struggling with it to go read your vision statements, and hopefully that kickstarts our creativity. But again, only you can do this for yourself. I'm telling you, it's worth it. Write a vision statement for your life. I exist to... Finish the sentence. Make it short and sweet and easy to memorize, and make it compelling and make it meaningful so that it guides you toward a compelling, meaningful life. The truth is, we cannot go back and rewrite the chapters that have already been written into our story. We can't. The past is in the past. You can't change it. All we have is from this moment on. And so from this moment on, what kind of story do you want to tell with your life? And what is the compelling vision that's going to keep you focused on telling that story day after day after day after day? Let's pray. God, we are told that you are the ultimate author. Right? You tell us that you are the author and the perfecter of our faith, the author and the perfecter of our lives. And you don't write meaningless, purposeless stories, and you don't create aimless, purposeless people. It just feels that way sometimes. For especially the last year, it just feels like, what do I do with my life? Why do I exist? I just go to work, I come home, I'm frustrated, I'm snappy with the kids, and that's it, on repeat, day after day after day. But you made us for more than that. You are the author and perfecter of our faith and of our lives. God, would you open up our minds and open up our hearts and open up our eyes to the unique reason that you've created us all individually? God, would you help us to write it down? Like even for the people who are like, oh, this is not my cup of tea, I'm not good at this stuff. God, would you inspire us and help us to write an easy to memorize vision statement for our lives so that we can bring focus and intentionality to every single hour that you've gifted us. And then God, for the people in the room who are like, it's too late for me. The chapters that have been written into my book, it's a novel and it's not good. God, for any of those people in the room right now, God, you're the God of plot twists. You were the God of like, oh, I never saw that coming. I never saw you doing that in his life or in her life. God, would you make a plot twist happen? God, we love you very much. And I'm praying that you give us some creativity and some discernment so that we can understand the exact and unique reason that we exist. And God, I know that you'll do that for us because of your Son, the author and perfecter of everything about our lives. And it's in his holy name that I pray. Amen.
Alone in my sorrow and dead in my sin, lost without hope, with no place to begin. Your love made a way to let mercy come in. When death was arrested and my life began, ash was redeemed, only beauty remains. My orphan heart was arrested and my life began. Come on, we sing. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. Released from my chains, I'm a prisoner no more. My shame was a ransom he faithfully bore. Yes, he did, God. And he canceled my debt and he called me his friend. That's when death was arrested and my life began. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new, now life begins with you. Our Savior displayed on a criminal's cross. Darkness rejoiced though heaven had lost. But then Jesus arose with our freedom in hand. That's when death was arrested and my life began. That's when death was arrested and my life began. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. Yeah. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new, now life begins with you. Oh, we're free, free, forever we're free. Come join the song of all the redeemed. Yes, we're free, free, forever, amen. When death was arrested and my life oh, we're free, free, forever we're free. Come join the song of all the redeemed. Yes, we're free, free, forever, amen. When death was arrested in my life, that's when death was arrested in my life. That's when death was arrested in my life began. Yes, he did, God. Hey. Amen. Man, we love you guys so much. It's been great being with you. Hey, don't forget to stop and check out the groups on your way out. We love you guys. We'll see you next week.